get debugging started in VS Code, which is pretty simple. Shouldn't take too long to set up and get going. So here I have a quick program. It's the mod program. It's compiled correctly. If you're having a hard time getting the compiler set up, you might try the compiler video, which I'll put a link in the description. But it's a program I know compiles fine into an exe or into a application file. And now I want to get debugging going on it. And the way you do that, there's a couple different ways. I could just press F5 at this point and it would start the setup. I can also go over the little debug icon here on the left. And I think the best way to do it is so that it's set up so you don't have to keep setting up each time, which really entails creating this JSON file. So if I click on create JSON or launch.json, it asks me which debugger. It doesn't say this very well, but which debugger do I want to use? This GDB one, C++, Windows has one, I guess, there, and I also have the LLDB one installed on this computer, and I'm going to use that one. I found the LLDB to be the quickest, I think, to get launched and going, which kind of matters to me. So I'm going to hit LLDB, and at that point it creates a file called launch.json. And it is, as you can see, just a short little JSON file. And the problem with this debugger, or this launch file that's created when you do the LLDB, is it doesn't put the application name in there. And so that's the little gotcha in this, is you got to put whatever's going to be started. So if I open this up, mod program is the name of my exe, or my executable program. I'm on a Mac. If you were on a Windows, you'd have to say something like modprogram.exe. But all I have to do here is put in mod program right there inside of where it says program, workspace folder / and then put your application in. That's the only little gotcha. Save that file, and now you're ready to launch. So I'll go back to the little icon with the bug, and you notice it looks a little different in here now that we have this launch file. Just go back one. This goes inside the VS Code folder. Sometimes that one isn't seen, but it's inside there. So if you open up that folder, you'll see a launch.json. That is really for launching it for debugging. So back on the little bug, we see this point now. We can go ahead and press the green arrow to start debugging, and let's see how that works. I will just put my icon or my cursor in the gutter here where the little red icon shows up, and I'll click on that, and now that's a breakpoint for me. And so if I was to go ahead and press the green arrow to go, it will stop there the first time it runs through. See, that was a pretty quick startup. So now as I step through this, you'll see that my variables change over here, so I can see the values that were assigned, so 73 and 13. And I can actually set in values in here, so I could say, oh, let me see what nval2 is. And so I can watch ones, or I can just kind of automatically have them maintained up here. And then I can look at the call stack, and so if I'm in a function nested way inside another function, this will show, okay, you're in main, now you're inside another function. So it kind of show you where you are. That's called the stack frame. So it kind of shows you that, and you can set breakpoints from here. So here's one of the breakpoints I have set. And so it offers several different little views into your data. And maybe the most important thing is it allows me to go ahead and step through and watch how the program progresses through my function. So let's do that here. All right, so now I'm going to be in the debug area, and I'm going to watch it go through again and actually go into this mod func1 function, and let's see what happens. So I'll press the start button. I could also press F5, and I'm going to encourage everybody to use F5 up in the top of their keyboard. Once you get used to it, you don't have to move your hand back and forth to the cursor. You can just kind of keep your hand on the keyboard and step through it and watch what happens. So I'm going to press just the play button right now, but I'll be using F5 from now on and the different function keys. You can see that over here there are different functions that I can run, or different buttons I can run. If I press this, it's the same as F5. Continue, it'll just keep going with the program to the next breakpoint or whenever the program exits. I could press F10. F10 steps over a function. So watch that in a second. F11 steps into a function. So if I want to go into one and keep watching as it goes through, then I press F11. And then if I'm inside a function and I want to go outside, then I press step out or shift F11. And that then finishes that function but stops as you get to the outside of the function. I find that less useful than F10 and F11. I pretty much use those exclusively, I guess. And then of course you can always restart it, Shift F5, or I guess that one Shift Command F5, or I can stop it, which is Shift F5. So let's just try a few of those things. Here I'm going to step through by just pressing F10. Okay, F10, see I'm stepping over each application, or each call there, and now I get to this function. If I press F10, the program does go and run the mod1 function, but I don't go into it as a debugger. It just jumps right over the top like that. So if I was to go ahead and look at the end return value, it did return the correct value, 8, but I didn't have to go into the function. So now I'll go ahead and just press F5. That will just keep playing the program on through, and it will get to the end of main and exit. So okay, it exited. So I'm going to press F5 and start again. Here we go, starting up. There's the first breakpoint, F10, F10. Now I'm going to step into the function, which is F11. F11, there we go. Now I'm going along and I'm going through this loops until I'm done looping. And finally, okay, I get to the end of the loop and I jump back out to the main function, F10, and I have my return value. So, and I'm probably going to hit F5 at this point for just exit right out of main, and I'm done. So you want to get good at using those function keys, because this will save you a ton of time. It's so much better than writing a little statement in your code that's like, I got here, or what a value of a variable is, and then you run the program and see what the value is there. Well, instead, you just run it till you get to a breakpoint, or where you put the breakpoint, and then you can evaluate, oh, did it go through this step? Well, let me see. Or what's the value of that variable? Is it what I expected it to be? So those are really valuable. The only thing that VS Code doesn't seem to do that, say, Visual Studio and some of the other Eclipse and other big IDEs that have good integrated debuggers, is it doesn't go backwards in time. So in the regular Visual Studio, you can move the cursor. You just kind of grab where the highlighted item is when you're running the debugger, and you can just pull up on it and go backwards through code and then go forward. So let's say you have something that you want to test vigorously with all sorts of different values. You could bring it up, change the value, go through, change it up, and it's really valuable. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to do that. You have to kind of start over. Let's look at changing a value. And then that's probably the last thing we'll look at. I'll go ahead and run the debugger. And right before we go into this function, I'm going to change the value of nval1. You notice that nval1 is 73 right now. Well, that's pretty easy to change. I could just go over here, double click on it, and I could say, oh, instead of 73, I want you to be 27. And that locks it into that variable. As long as it's the right type, it says, okay, now I'm 27. So now I can run this function. I'm going to skip over by pressing F10, and I have a different return value of 1 because nval1 is effectively different. So that's how I can test different values and see how does my function react to it. Or is my error statement there? Is it correctly trapping an error? So very valuable. I'd like you guys to get very good at using your debugger.